why advisors in a certain ilk weren't growing. I'm talking 30 to 50 million AUM. My first question is, why are they not growing? How did they get to this AUM in the first place? Where did the hunger go to grow further? And why don't they just simply repeat what got them there?
Nick Murray talks about human nature as a failed investor. Human nature is also a failed advisor, right? It is, I think, it is our human nature to want to tinker with things. And when something is working, it's hard to let it continue to work and compound. I know that sounds crazy, but it's really hard to show up and do the same thing for decades, right? I heard someone on a podcast recently talk about advisors have the 5-year itch. Every 5 years, they need to reinvent themselves. It's like, well, why would you do that? If the past 5 years were really good and you're seeing that growth and that compounding, why would you want to stop the engine, break it down, and try to build something new? Like, I don't understand wanting, what was the Peter Lynch quote about compounding? Like, rule number 1 is never interrupt, the compounding. So many advisors interrupt the compounding. And then maybe along the way, they get frustrated because they may not even see themselves that they're tinkering. And all of a sudden, when they start to tinker, the compounding stops. Of course it stopped. You stopped the engine.
Or you altered it, yeah.
You altered it, right? So it's not going to compound in the same meaningful ways that it had in the past. You get frustrated. You've got a decent base now. Maybe you're not grinding quite as hard. You get involved in some other activities. Advisors are well known for not always being involved in the best activities. And it can start to spiral and you lose your edge real quick.
I have a couple thoughts on it, but I loved where you went with it, just the one word of tinkering. Like, I run into a lot of clients that, and this is why we meet on a bi-weekly basis with my clients, is because we'll meet originally and they're like, I'm going to use some analogies here just to make this simple, but like, all I want is to have an entire grove of orange trees that just produce oranges. And we put in 4, 6, 8 months of work and we're growing beautiful oranges, meaning there's prospects calling, the business is growing, their AUM is going up, but they're bored.
I need some apple trees.
They get bored.
Yeah. I need apple trees with my oranges.
And I get the email, what's next? All right, what else are we doing? And I'm like, we have more oranges than you've ever seen in your life. That's all you wanted was oranges.
You said you wanted oranges.
And now we're like planting grapes and trying all these things.
Yeah, we could do an orange Julius. But now it's like, we want to do pineapples and coconuts and,
And to bring the analogy home, what happens is we mess up the soil and then we can't get back to the growing those huge oranges again because we've tinkered and messed with it.
Why aren't we growing the oranges anymore? Well, the other things that we did altered the soil and now we can't go back and grow this oranges the way that we used to.
It's wild.
But you see it all the time in advisor businesses. In the bank, they always talked about the 2 plateaus were 400 and 600 as far as revenue goes. And that if advisors didn't break through 12 to 18 months, they'd be there forever.
Wow.
And there were guys, from years in the bank, like clockwork, they would do $600,000 in revenue, give or take some sort of small.
That is so on par with what I run into. And my only assumption is that that's based on an income level, right? A comfortability.
I think if you're not careful, the business starts running you, right? Whether it's you take on a bunch of people maybe that you shouldn't have, and you got a ton of smaller accounts, which generally mean more service work. And you just find yourself in that constant loop of responding to service inquiries and things like that. The bank also had a stat that 98% of their client complaints came from people who had less than $100,000, and 80% of the service work came from people who had less than $100,000.
Yeah, the squeaky wheels.
Right. So many people have built their business, at the beginning, just, hey, we'll take anybody, if they fog a mirror and they have some money, let's start. Well, all of a sudden, 5-7 years down the line, now you have a business with the people who are probability wise the most likely to complain and the most likely to have ongoing service work. So you do that long enough and bring on enough of those people, you've got a business that it's impossible to manage.